Hey, Greg here, founder of www.wrestling-divas.web.com, your source for highlighting the most beautiful and deadly entertainers in professional wrestling. Thanks to everyone for tuning in via blogtalkradio.com for another exclusive interview on the behalf of my site. Tonight, I have a special guest joining me. She is a model and pro wrestler. She's been wrestling for a number of years, but fans might be interested to know that she is the daughter of a former TNA superstar. So yes, she is second generation, and it is not often that I interview second generation stars. So I am really psyched to introduce my special guest, the Duchess of the Spinebuster, Amber Young. Hi, Amber. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, if the last name did not give it away, you are the daughter of a former TNA superstar. He is known as the Messiah of the Spinebuster, David Young, who, of course, worked for TNA for a number of years as a member of the Diamonds of the Rough and the New York Connection, NYC, along with Glenn Gilberti. They also feuded with the Insane Clown Posse when they were wrestling there. So David is definitely known in this industry. I got to ask you, though, being a second-generation star, do you feel under pressure at all to, carry on that legacy of what David left behind and what he's continuing to work with? And how do you not imitate and instead emulate your last name and make sure that you're not riding in the shadow of what he created?
Well, I do. I mean, it is a lot of pressure because everyone always expects me to be exactly like him in every aspect of the business, and I'm not. He actually had very little to do with my training. I mean, I think we did a couple of things together, but that was it. So I'll try to bring out my own style in it instead of following him exactly. And people tend to, when they tend to judge me, but once they actually get to see me work, they realize that I'm not exactly like him, that I bring out my own personality in it.
So does it upset you at all when second-generation stars, especially as we get into the bigger companies, are pushed to kind of ride the coattails of their fathers and mothers and, instead of creating their own legacy, just kind of copy what they left behind? Does it upset you at all when, just because of your last name, they're getting these certain opportunities that they haven't necessarily earned?
Well, yes and no. Yes, because they just get handed something because of who their parents are, and they think that they're actually good when they're really not. I mean, nothing against people, but they think they can just get through it because of the name. When there are other ones like me who have worked so hard to try to make that name for ourselves, as well as show that, hey, I am a wrestler's kid, but let me show you what I can do on my own.
So when you move forward and when you're in a match, people judge you by your last name, like you said, until they actually see that your personality is much different from that of your father's. So, I mean, what do you do to make that personality different? Is it in your character styling, or is it in the moves that you do? Is it the way you handle social media? I mean, what do you do to set yourself apart from any sort of legacy that he left behind?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, he was more over the top. He did a lot more high fly than I would ever consider doing. I'm more on the technical side of wrestling. I would prefer, mat wrestling over getting on the top rope and doing a moonsault like he would. In social media, I'm definitely more outgoing than he is. I'm outspoken, and I could talk to anybody about anything, especially wrestling. And he's just more of the type of person who kind of kept wrestling simply wrestling. That was it. It was nothing but a sport. But to me, it's like it's my passion. I grew up around it. I've loved it my entire life, and I've always wanted to do it. So
going into your training, now I'm sure being around a wrestler all the time growing up, you saw him coming home with injuries and whatnot. But actually going through with the training, was your perception of how difficult the wrestling industry is changed when you had to take the bumps or how to learn to, fall off the ropes and do all these crazy things? I mean, was it really difficult for you, especially considering that, usually speaking, women are the underdogs in the training classes because they're dominated by the males?
Believe it or not, I knew what I was getting myself into because we used to, straight from the beginning, I was taking bumps in a wrestling ring. But once you get older and actually take it more serious, it is a lot different because you have to be spot on all the time, and you have to train to make yourself, I wouldn't necessarily say perfect, but as close to perfection as you can possibly be. And when you're a kid, you see it and you're like, I'm going to do that one day. But you actually start doing it, it's a completely different ball game.
So when you were in the training classes, and of course, like you said before, you weren't actually trained by your dad, did you find it at all difficult? Because I heard you were trained by a guy, and some females are trained by males and some females aren't. So did you find that at all difficult to work with a male as opposed to a female when you were training and learning all these bumps and certain moves?
A little bit, yes, because before I ever started training, I wanted to be taken serious. I didn't want it to be, Amber's David's daughter, let's take it easy on her. I wanted to be like everybody else. And that's why I decided to be trained by a male, because I knew that they would actually listen to me and go as hard on me as they would the guys, instead of being trained by a female and her being nice and very sensitive about it.
So, as stated earlier in the interview, you also have a career as a model, and oftentimes models are given a lot of flack by certain fans and individuals within the wrestling industry about, getting to where they are just because of their looks. And there are certainly individuals who they get to the WWE without any past wrestling experience and, have this title around their waist after, 6 months of competing or whatnot. What's your opinion on models in wrestling, seeing as you are one outside of the ring, and what do you think about all the negativity surrounding them as far as how the fans respond?
I definitely think that the way that people react to models being wrestlers is completely wrong, because they think that, like you said, they think that we're nothing but a face, that we're just there to attract the male attention, which for me, that wasn't the case at all. I started wrestling before I started modeling. I was actually at a wrestling show when a photographer came to me and started talking to me about working with them, and from there, my modeling career just kind of set off. There are models, yeah, they're pretty faces, but there are some of these girls out there that are so talented too, and they don't really get the credit that they deserve. They're just, somebody says, she's a pretty girl, we want a lot of people let's put them on the show. They don't even have to be a good wrestler. Just put them out there in a skimpy outfit. And it kind of degrades models and women in wrestling in general, but I try to make it more about my talent than my looks.
Now, there are some companies out there that certainly do the reverse and make it more about looks instead of, talent. So what kind of message do you think that sends to young, aspiring fans out there who want to be a part of this industry one day?
For girls, I think I definitely think it sends the wrong message for them, simply because these girls think that they have to be really, really skinny or have to have plastic surgery done or wear a ton of makeup to be pretty. And I know plenty of female wrestlers that don't wear a lick of makeup. There are some that are really short. There are some that are bigger girls that are some of the most amazing talent that I've ever seen. And I definitely think the way that females are portrayed is completely wrong.
So prior to this interview, I asked you if you won any titles, and you haven't because you feel like you haven't earned enough respect from others and paid enough dues in order to get a shot at a title. Now, how does it make you feel when companies, big and small, give titles to individuals who have, say, only been there for 6 months or a year and kind of shove it down the fans' throat? How does it make you feel when they're granted these opportunities when they haven't necessarily been there for a long time?
I mean, it obviously upsets me because these people who have been in the business for just a small amount of time think they actually deserve something like that. They think that they deserve to hold a title, and that's not the case at all. To me, holding a title is about you have to earn your respect. You have to pay your dues in this business, and you can't do that in 6 months. There's no possible way. I've been wrestling for 2.5 years, and I still don't think I've paid my dues enough for something like that. But as soon as they jump in this business, they think that they're already the best there is out there and that they deserve everybody's full-on attention and respect and power.
Now, your dad, David, was a member of Spike TV's Impact Wrestling for a number of years, and very few individuals make it to that company or a company that's equally sized and as popular. So given that there is such a lack of opportunity for anyone in this industry, what keeps you going and what keeps you grounded when, you may never make it that big regardless of how many dues you've paid and how talented you are as a performer?
To me, it's not about making it to be on TNA or WWE or anything like that. Growing up and being able to actually sit in the crowd and watch how people look at you as either a hero or a villain, or they fall in love with you just by you telling a story, is what captivated me. And step out in front of a large crowd and I have people cheering my name and these little girls saying that they want to be just like me one day, that's the drive that keeps me going, that keeps me to try harder and continue on with this business.
So in the indie scene, a lot of matches are recorded for later, for later viewing of a bigger audience. Usually speaking, unless it's a really popular company, the match that you're currently in will only be seen by the crowd that you're currently performing in front of. So needless to say that in wrestling, on the indie scene, there's a big aspect of the now and, making the best of every moment because it's not going to happen again. So when you take the in the now aspect, how do you make the best of it and make sure that every moment of your match is memorable?
Well, I'm all about personality. I'm all about making the crowd interested in what you're doing, because in the indie scene nowadays, it's hard to keep people's attention. So there are those things that you have to do to keep them begging for more, even if that means, asking them to cheer you on a little bit more for help, or to keep your personality up and excited and showing them that you want to be there to do this for them.
Now, you just said that it's very hard to keep wrestling fans' attention nowadays, and I think that part of that is because a lot of them are nitpickers because of things like the internet. Fans are knowledgeable about wrestling and, wrestlers and, taking bumps without actually being a part of the wrestling industry other than a fan. So, does it upset you at all when some fans are hyper-judgmental and that they nitpick at everything that you do? And what do you do to make sure that, you're as original as you can be?
I know that nowadays there's nothing original. Everybody has taken something from someone at some point in time and tried to make it their own. Like, my dad is the Messiah of the Spinebuster. Everybody's seen my dad's Spinebuster. They know it's beautiful, and they know it's very graceful. Mine, he sits out with his, or he lays on a hip with his. I sit out with mine. It's just taking something and making it your own, adding your own little bit of flavor to it, where people can see that you're not just like everybody else. You can do something and make it your own and make it look good.
A lot of fans don't really realize this until they get involved with the industry in some further way, but wrestling is a great industry, but it's also a business industry. People are looking to make money, performers are looking to make money, some are looking to make money just to make money, and some are looking to make money to keep the industry going, and that really varies on the individual. So do you need a strong business sense to make it big in this industry? Do you need to learn how to self-promote, or, what do you need to do to be noticed by the right people?
Well, now, a lot of times you have to know a lot of the right people. And I know that sounds awful, but that's basically what it boils down to. If you want to make it somewhere big, it may not be like WWE or TNA, but it may be like NWA or OVW or something like that. If you want to make it somewhere like that, you have to know people. You have to be willing to dedicate all of your time to staying in shape and training and working harder to be the best that there is out there just to even notice. And yes, you do have to self-promote. You have to send videos of yourself out and show people that you are extraordinary and that you do have something that they want.
So definitely moving forward in this industry, where would you like to see female wrestling go as a whole? Because by these big companies, it's just getting a lot of criticism these days from all these fans about, the models being hired, the aspect of time and the lack thereof given to these performers. Where would you like to see women's wrestling go in the mainstream moving forward?
Well, of course I want to see women's wrestling go far. I want to see people take it serious, because nowadays nobody really takes it serious. Everybody will just say, oh, it's a women's match, this is nothing but a big joke. And it's not like that. A lot of women work hard, and we may not be as strong or as versatile as the men, but we do have our own aspects of this business that make it fun to watch us, but people don't want to actually put that time in to learn what wrestling is about. And I would just like to see more people respect it, basically.
Now, there are some females out there who, take the industry very seriously, but then they have an over-the-top gimmick like, the living Barbie doll gimmick or whatnot. What do they need to do to make sure that they're more remembered for the character that they're portraying and the, over-exaggeration that wrestling brings instead of just their looks?
Me personally, I would say keep your character there, but work so much harder to make the fans either love you or hate you or whatever it is you need to do. Stop, if these girls would stop worrying so much about, do I look too big in this outfit? Do I have enough makeup on? Is my hair going to get messed up? If so many girls would stop worrying about this and just worry about their talent, it would probably help women's wrestling much more than I could ever imagine.
So, with that being said, a lot of people may not realize this, even though they contribute to it, but some of the problem may be, these fans still paying to see, these models who are given these shots, Why stop something if it's not particularly broken? So what do us fans need to do in order to help women's wrestling?
Oh, that one's a tough one. I would honestly say that people much like the women wrestlers in general would need to stop worrying so much about what the women's outfits look like, if their shorts are too short or if, their tops are too tight, and watch what they can do instead of what they look like.
Now,
like they actually need to realize the talent.
Now, some people may realize the talent, certainly, because there are some great companies out there like Shimmer, but again, some companies are promoting the looks and the outfits and the makeup and the surgery much more than the talents. And honestly, if a fan went up to you and said, I want to make it to the WWE or a company that's doing that in some ways, would you be supportive of that goal, seeing as the current direction that women's wrestling is going in? Would you encourage that person to get involved, seeing as that's the product that it would lead to?
I'm always going to encourage somebody to wrestle, especially if it's something that they definitely have their mindset to. But I would make sure that they understood what female wrestling should actually be about instead of what WWE or TNA is portraying it to be.
So when your career has run its course, and I'm sure you have a long career ahead of you, but when your career has run its course, what do you want to be remembered most for by the fans out there?
Definitely my talent and my charisma and my drive.
I'm about to hit you with another hard question before we get to how fans can contact you. And it's always one of my favorite questions to ask during my interviews.
Okay.
So if you had to describe your experience with professional wrestling and your career in just one word, what would that one word be?
Scary.
So I know that you have a Twitter account, and that, like every wrestler out there nowadays, social media is popular. So how can fans stay in contact with you?
Well, I do have a Twitter account. It's Amber_623. I have a Facebook. You can look under Amber Young. It's got modeling on there. It's been under the works of a Facebook fan page. Hope that will be up soon. We're still kind of working through the details with everything, but also my own personal website is going to be out within the next couple of months. We're looking at coming out by July, and if anybody wanted to kind of figure out when that's going to come out, they could follow me on my Twitter and my Facebook to keep up with it.
Well, fantastic. I want to thank you, Amber, so much for your time, and it definitely sounds like you have a passion for this industry, and I certainly believe that will take you very far. So I wish you all the best with your career. So thanks to everyone else for tuning in to this interview. Be sure to check out www.wrestling-divas, and that's divas with a Z as always, .webs.com for more content, and be sure to follow the site on Twitter, again with the Z at the end, Wrestling Divas. Thank you, everyone, and happy Easter.